So to nobody's surprise, around like 2 weeks ago, Sony decided to jump on the retro classic emulated console bandwagon and announced the PlayStation Classic. Most of you don't really need any clarification on this system because I'm assuming you've done your research and read about it and seen the trailer of it. But for those that don't know what this is, it's basically Sony's version of the SNES and NES Classic, but instead it's of the PlayStation 1 and its library. The system in general is the size or like the shape of the PlayStation 1, but way more smaller. On top of that, it comes with 2 controllers, which are designed as the original PlayStation 1 controllers without the analogs, which I don't know why they will even do that, because analogs are a good thing. I'll probably talk about that later on in this video. It comes with an HDMI cable. It doesn't come with an AC adapter, which I don't understand, but I'll talk about that later on as well. And it comes with 20 games. So far, 5 of the 20 have already been revealed, and they are Final Fantasy VII, Jumping Flash, Ridge Racer Type 4, Tekken 3, and Wild Arms 1. We still need to know what the 15 other games are, and I'll talk about the rest of the games in another video, but that's besides the point. But that's the PlayStation Classic console's specs and what comes with. So, hey everybody, Nick Knack here, back again for another video. And first off, let me just say, please ignore the mess, and woohoo, I finally found my hat. Now, as you see on the title down below, this is going to be a video of me talking about the PlayStation Classic, give my thoughts on it, ramble off on certain things, what I think it should do, which even though I really want to happen, it probably won't, because that tends to happen with a whole lot of games or systems and choices that I ever request. It doesn't come true and it doesn't happen. So anyway, the PlayStation Classic, when this first got announced, some people were mixed. Some people are actually looking forward to it. I think the mix is the people are because of the 20 games, no adapter, and the $100 price tag. Oh, $100 for Americans. I'm not sure how it is for other countries and regions, but for us Americans, it's $100. As for the people who are excited for it, they're excited probably because, of course, Sony's finally doing one of these emulated console systems, and it's a great way to get people into older games without having to have them boot up the system or buy all these games and old consoles that there's a chance that some of them might not work. Me personally, I kinda am really looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot, but I'm skeptical and kinda concerned on a bit of certain things about it, which I'll touch up more on this video. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably buy it if I have the money, but other than that, that's all I have to say for this introduction. Now let's get on to the meat and potatoes of this video and just talk about some stuff in general of the system and ramble about. So yeah, let me transition right now so I could get my head thinking straight and clear my thoughts and whatnot. Yeah. Okay, so for this list of things I want to talk about for the PlayStation Classic, there are around like 10 to 11 things, and I might just touch up on some of them, while others I might delve into a whole lot. So that's the first thing, and let's get on with them. The first thing I want to start with is this name. The name is probably gonna have a whole bunch of problems because PlayStation Classic, people are gonna say that they couldn't come up with anything original. They had to copy Nintendo with their SNES and NES Classic. Be like, why can't you think of anything new? Why do you have to plagiarize our shit? Personally, the name PlayStation Classic, it's an alright name. I don't think they can come up with anything new or special anyway that wouldn't like have its prime purpose. Because let's say if they were to use the name PlayStation Mini because of course this console is smaller than the original PlayStation 1, then probably that would cause a bunch of confusion because, oh, is it just like that very small PS1 slim or like redesign that they had originally? Is this gonna be like a PlayStation 4 Mini? That's probably the first type of problem a name like that has. PlayStation Retro would be another good name, or like a name that I was thinking of when like talking about this part, and Retro will actually work. I think it should have been like that name if they were to like get fucked over with using the term classic. I can't really think of any other names, and I'm not sure if people would think of any other like names for it without like talking about like the purpose of it. So PlayStation Classic, I'm actually for the name. Speaking of being ripoffs and plagiarism and whatnot, probably one of the most bullshit things about the problems about this is that people are probably gonna say, oh, this is a ripoff Nintendo plagiarism because Nintendo did it first, Sony's just hopping on their dick or something like that. Well, for those people who say that the PlayStation Classic is a ripoff of Nintendo's ideas, they sure are a bunch of Nintendo fuckboys, because there's actually a thing called Plug and Plays, which Nintendo actually did not invent or do first. There are way other companies that did this shit earlier before that. I even have one somewhere stuck with me with a whole bunch of wires, and that was made by Sega with a Sega Genesis pack of 6 games. Besides Sega, others include Atari, Namco, Intellivision, a whole bunch of plug-and-play systems of original games, as well as a whole bunch of fighting games. I could go on and on, but for those that have said that Nintendo was the one who started this, they're the originators, can fuck off, because you don't see any Sega, Atari, or Intellivision fans be pissed off at Nintendo for trying to copy their shit, because this concept is not original. The next thing I want to talk about on this video is its price. Some of you might say $100 is way too expensive for a system that has only 20 games. First off, if you've seen the previous offerings that their competition, go talk about Nintendo again with this. If you have seen the prices of their Nintendo Classic systems, then this one is a decent price, because the NES Classic, around like 20-ish games, $60. SNES Classic, 20-ish games, $80. So the PlayStation Classic, 20-ish games, $100 is not so bad. Which leads me to the next thing. Why do I not think it's too bad? Because PlayStation is CD emulation and not cartridge. From personal experience with trying to load up Saturn, PlayStation 1, Sega CD, probably Dreamcast sooner or later, I think CD emulation, and also probably I'm going to say DVD and Blu-ray emulation as well, is way too harder to do than cartridge. The cartridge, you could just download the game, play it like that without a stitch. With CD emulation, you need a whole bunch of other things like BIOS and other types of things that will let you play it. You have to configure it, you have to install other types of apps. And it's a bit of a hassle compared to cartridge. So with CD emulation, I'd say it's kinda like not too bad, and it kinda, is reasonable for the price it's at. Speaking of CDs and it being a bit more hard, 20 games is what this console aims to do. And as I said again, it's not that bad of a price compared to the others, because CD games take way too much memory than cartridge. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that. Let me transition right now to my computer screen, give you some examples on how CDs are way too more. So the price alone for installing it and having like a huge ass hard drive, which I probably predict this might be a few hundred gigabytes or maybe a terabyte for the whole system to run all these games. Speaking of which, I think it better run well, because that's like do or die for a system. But anyway, I'm going to show you some examples on CD taking more memory than cartridge. And yeah. Okay, so as I'm saying again, $100 for the PlayStation Classic is a reasonable price, because compared to the SNES or NES Classic, PlayStation games are of course CD games, and CD games use up way too much more memory compared to cartridge games. And for the 20 games on the CD emulation system, I'm assuming that if I were to make a prediction on how much Sony will have to invest for the memory, it would be around like 40 to 50 or maybe 100 gigabytes of data. And I tell you what, that is pretty expensive if you ask me. So like my main point I want to switch is to show that CD games are pretty heavy for the memory. Let's look at Final Fantasy VII, for example, as one of the main sellers or main games for the PlayStation Classic. Final Fantasy VII, this one of three, it has around 462 megabytes. Let's just look at the Final Fantasy VII in general. So 462 megabytes. Remember that, people? And now we look at discs 2 and 3. So Final Fantasy VII is around 455 for disc 2. Disc 3, 402. So that is a lot. let's look at the other games as well that were announced on the system. Tekken 3. Let's get this European version. Oh wait, no, that's Tempest. So Tekken 3. It costs around $439. I could go on and on with games, but anyway, it's like hundreds, even like half a gigabyte of memory needed for these games, or a quarter, compared to cartridge-based games, which were the first Nintendo systems, like the first three. Let's look at how much megabytes or even kilobytes their games are. So I got Goldeneye, Conqueror, Banjo-Kazooie, Perfect Dark. Unfortunately, we're unable to find any of the Nintendo published and developed titles on emulation sites like the Mario's, Zeldas, and Smashers, so I'm gonna have to use rare titles, which I know aren't gonna be in the system, but I can't think of any other big exclusives. Speaking of Nintendo and emulation, most particularly this site, Nintendo, fuck you, because I want people to experience emulation, because not everybody has the money to buy a $60 copy of Mario RPG, or they have how many dollars to get a Sega CD or an original Super Nintendo, and so forth. Yeah, they pretty much like took down the site, but that's besides the point. Now, as I said again, PlayStation games have way too more memory, and I'll show you compared to how it does compared to Nintendo systems. So as remember, half a gigabyte. Let's look at Goldeneye. 11 megabytes. Let's look at Conquer. 59 megabytes. Banjo-Kazooie. 16 megabytes. And I could go on and on with the N64 games, but if we were to estimate maybe like 30 or 40, 10 to 40 megabytes per game, and they could store more if they gave the opportunity. Let's look at the past games for the SNES and how much they take up on the SNES Classic, starting with Chrono Trigger, a game which I don't think was on there, but anyway, 3 megabytes. Mega Man X, 1 megabyte. Earthbound, 2 megabytes. So, not as much as the PS1 memory for those games. Of course, last but not least, look at the NES. It's way smaller, 92 kilobytes. 84 kilobytes. 136 kilobytes. Extremely small compared to the PlayStation games that I showed. So all in all, my point is made. $100 reasonable because way too more memory for CD emulation. And yeah, let me cut back to me talking on camera again. Okay, so that's all I have to say for the amount of memory needed and the $100 price tag. If you stuck it through, you probably will agree with me on those points and my reasoning for them. If not, give me some reasoning or explain some arguments on why I'm wrong. But that's besides the point. Now for the next few parts of this video, there's gonna be a bit of criticisms and things I say that Sony needs to do in order to make this system succeed or not be as bad as people expect it to be. Alright, first off, the thing I want to address first is that there is no AC adapter to it. At first I was like, why would you do that? It's a stupid idea to do. Because how are you going to turn on the system, of course? But according to the back of it, it looks like that it's not that big of a deal because if you see behind there, I think the type of cord or wire for that are one of these right here. These mini USB drive thingies. Yeah, mini cables. Which of course are used to charge the PS4. So supposedly, if you see on the back, it's kind of the same size as it. And if that's the reason why there's no adapter for it, it seems reasonable because all you could just do is get one of these, combine them, plug it to a wall, and that's how you charge the PlayStation Classic. That's what they need to do if they're not gonna include an adapter. Speaking of not including things, the controllers that they're using are not the analog controllers, but the original controllers, which I personally think is dumb, because there are a whole bunch of games that use the analogs that would work perfect with the system, most notably Ape Escape, and all these 3D JRPGs, they're like still or stacked backgrounds, like Final Fantasy 7, 8, Xenogears, Grandia, all of those games. Stupid move if you ask me. The only way I could see them repairing this and being smart if that they did this is that the reason why they won't allow those analog controllers is because they will let us use these. Yeah, I know this is way different from a PlayStation 1 controller, but if you have played Sony systems, then for the most part, the controller design tends to be the same. I mean, as its layout, like D-pad over here, the buttons over here, analogs, L1, R1, L2, R2, all that stuff is the same, except for differences in these buttons and so forth. That's the only way that they'll probably, or the people who hate the controllers will probably forgive you if you let us use those. Speaking of which, the controllers they're coming out with for the system, I really hope they work on the PC. The next thing I want to talk about in terms of specs and hardware and maybe criticisms is that they're actually having a memory card slot for the system. What I would really love to happen is that on top of putting games like saving it to the Classics drive, or the drive of the Classic, or whatever you call it, I personally want them to be all hey, if you have an old memory card for the original PS1, if you want to use that for your games, you can. So I could take my old memory card with data of Tekken or Final Fantasy 7 and then put it there. So just in case if my PlayStation 2 craps out, I could just play those games and beat them there. I think that would be a smart move for them, and even though it seems far-fetched, that would be really awesome to do. And the last type of hardware spectacle thing that I want to talk about is, as you see on there, I'm gonna pull this like picture up again. You see on the back left, they kind of have that little slot or thing where you put the Game Sharks in, or maybe like some sort of region unlocking device on it. Most likely they're not gonna have that stuff again, like the Game Shark code and so forth. What I think that back port should be used for is for a flash drive. A flash drive which has more ISOs of PlayStation 1 games, and you can use that to play more PlayStation games. Of course, just like what people did with modifying and hacking the SNES and NES Classic. That definitely needs to happen, because there are still a whole bunch of games that I bet people want to see, and 20 is not enough. And that's pretty much my conclusion, or all I have to say on this PlayStation Classic. I personally am looking forward to it. I really hope that they don't announce the games yet, the rest of the games yet, until I make my video. Kind of selfish for me, but oh well. And yeah, I really want this to be on the level of succeeding as the SNES and NES Classic, because more of these emulated clone systems are great. And maybe if we're lucky, I hope it will lead to a PlayStation 2, a Dreamcast, even Saturn Mini collection emulation system. So, yeah. And they're great gifts for people. So, I know this is like 20 or 30 minutes long. I can't believe it. Me as well. So, I'm gonna end it right here. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching. Take it easy, and until next video.